everybody? Welcome to Capital of Combat. The name says it all. I'm Hakeem Branch.
Rob Jarrell.
And today we're going to recap this past Saturday's HBO World Championship Boxing, in which we had Vasily Lomachenko in a sparring match against Roman Corsica. And we had Tim Bradley versus Brandon Rios for Timothy Bradley's welterweight portion of the welterweight title. Now, if you watched our preview video, we kind of did like a split side thing. We both pretty much said that the Lomachenko fight was pretty much a showcase fight, and it was going to last as long as the handlers of Corsica or Corsica himself could stand taking the punches of Lomachenko. And it got, like, for people who have not seen Lomachenko, it was a good introduction to him because, like, other than his fight with Gary Russell, I think all of his fights have been on pay-per-view. His debut was on pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
The fight was Salido. Was that on pay-per-view?
I believe so.
Yeah. So, and also, because of the caliber opponent, we got to see him open up the toolbox, and he did some pretty spectacular things. What you got, Rob?
He just beat him for like 9 rounds.
Yeah.
He just beat on Corsica. The guy was overmatched, and he got the call. He took the call. Pretty good money. He was on national television. And
worldwide television.
He tried, but the only thing that he could do was kind of fight off his back feet and make Lomachenko come to him. And try to hit him with something, didn't see a counterpunch Lomachenko, which really didn't work that well because Lomachenko was just too sharp, varying up his. It was a glorified sparring match. Sparring match. He was in there as long as he could, and that's where we saw the knockout.
Yeah, and we really can't fault Lomachenko because he's gonna fight and get paid, and he's got to fight the people they put in front of him. So it's really up to like the politics and all the other, fighters and things to get in the ring with him. He'd probably be favored with against most of the guys in and around the division, but they still have to sign up and fight him. There are some guys that, maybe can give him some trouble, like maybe like Rigondeaux or something like that. But like we said, they got to get in the ring together.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk of him fighting Nicholas Walters at 130.
Yeah, and that's strange because they both are at 126. But Nicholas Walters is a huge featherweight.
Yeah, he might be too big. I'm not gonna say he might be too big, but that is a big dude for 126. And he's saying he's staying at 126, but don't think his body's gonna let him stay at 126.
Not too much longer. And Lomachenko, he's a little smaller in stature, but he's not a small guy either. He looked a lot bigger than Corsica in the ring. So we'll just have to wait to see what's coming next from Lomachenko. Let's move on to the main event where we had Tim Bradley fighting Brandon Rios for, I think he has the WBO title, Tim Bradley.
No, because it's not the WBC. I think
WBA.
Is it the WBA?
Yeah, I believe it's the WBA.
Which means there's about 4 portions to that belt.
Yeah. With Brandon Rios, we know what we get with him. If you watched our preview video, we pretty much laid that out. He's not the fastest of foot or hand. He's got some dogged determination. He has a pretty good left hook, and when he uses his jab, it's pretty useful against the guys that he had fought. We didn't think it'd be too effective against Bradley because Bradley is a much higher caliber opponent than Rios is used to fighting, with the exception of Manny Pacquiao. And we saw what happened when he fought Manny Pacquiao. He did absolutely nothing. I mean, it's Manny Pacquiao. So, we were expecting Bradley to win a pretty comfortable decision as long as he didn't get into too many exchanges and didn't try to get the machismo in the way of his smart game plan, which would be to outbox Brandon Rios. And we got that, except there were a few things that were a little bit different.
Okay, so before we go into the actual fight, hopefully you saw the weigh-in or saw the pictures. If you know, Rios had a 10-month layoff between this fight and his fight with Mike Alvarado. And that's not good, especially for a guy like Rios who tends to blow up between his fights. So you're talking about a guy who probably came down to 147 from 170 to 180 pounds. Then he rehydrated back up to 170 pounds on fight night.
Yeah, it took him 2 tries to make weight also.
Right. So that should pretty much tell you that he was having trouble with conditioning, and if I'm not mistaken, the reports were that he lost the majority of weight within the last week or within 2 weeks, which of course is not favorable, because you're going to be weight drained, you're going to be weak, you're going to be sluggish, you're just not going to be all there, so your reaction time is going to be terrible, and that's what we got. Now, he's a grinded out type guy. He's going to be able to try to get close. He's not going to stop, but he was just drained, soft. It's the same thing that we saw at 135, his fight or two at 140, and now at 147. Now, I don't want to talk about Robert Garcia's training ability, because he's a hell of a trainer, but I'm starting to think that he doesn't really have the skills to get his guys into proper weight management.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with the fighters themselves. Like Robert Garcia runs a successful boxing gym. He has several fighters that he has to train all at once. And when those guys leave the gym, it becomes up to them to want to stay in shape or want to keep their weight under control when they know that that is their livelihood. I have to make this weight, so I shouldn't get above a certain weight if I want to make it safely. And he did not do that.
But it's still the plan of having them lose the weight safely.
Yeah.
For the Mike Alvarado fight, they had, what's the name in his corner? Ariza?
Yeah. Was it? No, I think he had been gone by then.
Okay. Basically, he was in great, phenomenal shape for that fight. But due to just the natural build of Rios and the fact that he had been off, he just hadn't maintained that weight. You should have a target weight between fights that he should stay around at. And to be honest, between his fights and his lifestyle habits, which I'm not saying is bad, but pretty sure the weight management thing is really huge, that he just didn't come in all there against a guy who's always in phenomenal shape, mentally and physically, in Tim Bradley.
Yeah, that's not a good combination. And the funny thing is, like, I saw the weigh-in, and I was like, man, his eyes are sunken in. He looks dead. Man, he gonna get knocked out. And I was like, who am I kidding? This is Tim Bradley. He didn't knock anybody out. Boy, was I wrong.
Now, I don't know if you watched any of our past videos, but I know I've told Hakeem on many occasions that he may not get knockouts by punching upstairs, but Tim Bradley hits extremely hard to the body, and he works the body very, very well.
Yes, he does. And that was on full display Saturday night. I mean, those hooks to the body were vicious. The left hook, the right hook, he was throwing right uppercuts to the solar plexus. I mean, the body work was a work of art. He landed some good punches upstairs too, but that body work is what really carried the night, especially against a guy who did not make weight properly and was very soft around the midsection. You start punishing a body like that, it's gonna fall. And fall he did. I know a lot of people will, bring up the Teddy Atlas thing. And we had this discussion off camera, where physically, Bradley really didn't do much different as far as what we've seen out of his skill set. The difference came from a mental standpoint, whereas he was able to stick to his game plan the entire night. You see several times, if you watch his other fights where he gets off the game plan and Joel Diaz is like, hey man, what are you doing? Stick to the game plan. The game plan is going to get you to win. And he makes it a little bit tougher than he has to. Now with Atlas, he was able to stick to the game plan and you see the results. And it's kind of one of those things where sometimes you just need a fresh voice. Joel Diaz has taught Tim Bradley well. All of the tools that Tim Bradley has that he brought in with Atlas, he already had. He just needed someone to tell him the same things, just in a different voice. And with Atlas, he got that. And he was able to get the results that he wanted. That's my take on that.
Well, that's a really good take because of the fact is we know what Bradley can do. I think physically and skill-wise, he's pretty much maxed out his talent and ability. But from a mental edge, we already know he's extremely mentally tough and he's extremely smart. But his machismo gets in the way of his intelligence at times. A guy like Atlas demands discipline. He demands focus. He demands learning. And we're talking about know how to set up your opponent, know when to set up your opponent, know when to step on the gas, know when to step back, know when to push and get in the firefight, know when to box. And that's the kind of thing that Atlas was preaching to Tim Bradley, which is one of those things that Tim Bradley had talked about leading up to the fight. What he demands and how much you have to humble yourself. And to get that more so demanding voice, I'm going to be honest, I don't know the training camps with Tim and Joel Diaz. I'm not going to assume like I know. They just seem like they had a pretty good chemistry for as long as they've been together.
Yeah.
But for someone like Teddy Atlas, you're going to listen. He is very strict in the regimen and what he requires from his fighters. That's why he doesn't coach anymore. His last training, the last time he trained was Alexander Povetkin, who he did a very good job with. But there's a certain, I guess the discipline and what he required of the fighter was not to the liking. You can look that up on Google. It's there.
Yeah.
Why Teddy Atlas broke away from Alexander Povetkin. That's all I'm going to say about that. It's just from that mental edge that Bradley Atlas will be successful. Atlas is kind of like a drill sergeant / teacher, while Tim Bradley is a student, but he's very humble and he's an extremely hard worker.
Yeah. So that was really it. That was the story of the fight. Bradley able to keep that mental focus, stay disciplined, work his game plan to a T the entire night, and we saw the results. I know a lot of people will try to detract from his win because of the lack of discipline from Rios, but that's not Tim Bradley's fault. Brandon Rios signed that contract, and he probably believed and tried to the best of his ability to make that weight, which he did on the second try, but he wrote a check that his body couldn't cash. And that happens in the sport. So he retired afterwards. We'd like to thank him for, putting on the fights that he did, putting his body on the line for our entertainment, and hopefully he will find peace in his retirement.
Now for Bradley, the WBA, I have to double check, is ordering a defense against Saddam Ali, who is...
I think he's the WBC champ.
The WBC. Basically, there's a defense that they're ordering against Saddam Ali.
Yeah. That's
who they want to be the next fight for Tim Bradley. Saddam Ali is under Golden Boy. We know they're back on a working relationship with Top Rank.
Yes.
That is a very makeable fight.
Yes. And a very good one, too.
Yeah.
Saddam Ali is not bad at all. And he's actually gotten better as time goes on as well. Because I pretty much watched him since the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And he's come a long way. And Tim Bradley is a very good test for him to either step up and become that major player, mm-hmm. or learn from the experience of taking on one of the top guys in the game. So it's a huge opportunity for him. Bradley gets to knock someone else off the mountain on his way up. He's pretty close to the top anyway. But with the whole PBC, Golden Boy, Top Rank, like all the politics, unfortunately, we probably won't get a top dog in the division.
Well, if you listen to Teddy Atlas, he wants Bradley versus Mayweather.
Mayweather is no longer fighting for right now. If he says I'm coming out of retirement, go ahead, call the guy out. Let the guy enjoy his retirement. Fight some of the guys that are active and say, hey, I want to fight. That's how I feel.
And fights that are makeable.
Right. But that's the problem. A lot of those fights aren't makeable. So we'll sit back and see where Bradley goes, and we'll be watching. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. Give it a thumbs up. Comment down below with your thoughts. You can hit us up on Facebook, Google+, and Instagram at CapitalofCombat. You can hit us up on CapitalofCombat@gmail.com if you have anything you want to hit us up through the email. If you have any questions, hit us up on any of those mediums, and we'll get you in the combat mailbag. And next week, new technical toolbox. I'm for real serious about that. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
This is round one, and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is coming at cost. My fists are on fire, I perform till I perspire. My demons are in a rage, keep thinking that it's a game. I kick rhyme, hurricane. I told them I don't play, I'm liquid.
Black Street Fighter.